Hello, namaskar, namaskara, namaskaram, namaskar. My name is Pooja Dwivedi. Welcome to my class. Today we are going to discuss the war on maps. This is a cartographic offense that China has chosen. It is a proper part of a strategy in order to harass the neighbors. Nothing short of a disappointment after the 15th BRICS summit talk between the Indian Prime Minister and the Chinese President. We are going to discuss everything in detail today. Before I move on with the class, I would like to suggest that whoever is going to take admission in any course of study IQ, please make sure that you are availing a discount on Raksha Bandhan, and this is the last date. Today is the last date to avail any sort of discount with respect to Raksha Bandhan sale. And today is also the last date, that is 31st of August, when we are closing our P2I batches for the August evening one. This batch we launched from 23rd of August. Make sure you take admission as quick as possible. Use the code PDLive because you will get a good discount, and that price will become from 70,000 to 27,999. Other than this, if you want to take admission in any other course as well, you can use the code PDLive and avail the Raksha Bandhan discount. For the classes that I provide over here, I provide it through my Telegram channel, as in the PDF whatever I am teaching over here is provided on my Telegram channel, Pooja Dwivedi UPSC. If you have any queries regarding this examination, you can also talk to me through my Instagram. So, recently on 28th of August, China released a map which showed that the regions that belong to India, specifically Arunachal Pradesh and Aksai Chin, they all are a part of China. Not only that, Taiwan has also been shown as a part of China through its map, and the 9-line map that was iterated by China time and again has also been shown it. Now, China says that since time immemorial, since the medieval and dynastic timings, these were all a part of China. Similarly, if we take that logic, then Akhand Bharat consisted of parts of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tibet, and Sri Lanka. So, what do you think? All are a part of India right now? No, because we respect the integrity, the current sanctity of the territories. Back then, the territories were very fluctuative because there were no agreements, proper agreements were not made, which has the sanctity as they have it today. Also, the timing and the intention is impeccable of China. China has done it in order to show that it is not going to be bogged down by any sort of diplomatic talks, and India cannot trust China ever. That is what it is trying to show. So India said that we are not happy with it. This claim is completely absurd. Arunachal Pradesh as well as Aksai Chin are an integral part of India, and they have always been and they will always remain so. The border talks that are going on about disengagement, they will be derailed as well. Now we will discuss all that because this is a part of a proper strategy. The timing is a part of the strategy, it is not out of the blue. So we will discuss that. China has said that India should remain calm over the map because this is just a routine exercise. We have been attacking all your integrity since time immemorial. This is what China is trying to say. Not only India, but other neighbors of China such as Philippines, Malaysia, Taiwan, they have joined India in protest, and India can exploit this opportunity to get a better benefit. Not only that, Xi Jinping is not going to attend the summit as according to certain reports, the G20 summit that is going to happen in India. Now, why has China decided to release a map just days ahead of the summit, and after that they decided that I'm not going to India? First, it is all a part of a propaganda to ensure that the public sentiment remains with China. First, that means China wants to show, President of Xi Jinping wants to show China that they will become a greater country in the times to come. And China has not abandoned that policy. China is already going through a economic downgrade. We are doing much better in the Q1 of fiscal 2024 by China. But China is not happy with it. China has to ensure that we completely harass our neighbors, which it already is doing. So timing, first of all, days ahead of G20, when China knows that the different countries that are coming to G20 summit, they are going to, of course, talk about territorial integrity, specifically at the backdrop of Russia-Ukraine war. And China wants to show that it still considers many regions as its own. And China may have the right to invade these countries in the future. It's a diplomatic satisfaction that it is providing to itself. Then, secondly, it comes days after the optics when we thought that everything has been talked about at the 15th BRICS summit between India and China. When there were optics like Prime Minister Narendra Modi was talking to President Xi Jinping that the ongoing border issues should be resolved diplomatically and in a very intensive manner. But now China has once again proved with the release of this particular map that India cannot trust China. It will have an impact on the ongoing issue as well. That means the chances of border disengagement in Ladakh remain remote. This is what the entire propaganda is about. Alright. So moving ahead, if we talk about the LAC, I have time and again told you that it is just a concept. It is not anywhere written on the paper that this to this area is an LAC. No. It is very different from line of control. The line of actual control, India considers it to be 3488 kilometer long, but China says that it is just 2000 kilometers long. It is divided into three sectors. First is the western sector, which consists of Ladakh, middle sector, Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, and the eastern sector, which consists of Sikkim and Arunachal Pradesh. Western sector, most vulnerable, we can call it the most fluctuative in nature. Okay. Other than that, the middle sector is the most stable, and eastern sector also. China uses the eastern sector to push its narrative that this is a part of southern Tibet. Also, they consider Ladakh to be a part of western Tibet, which is completely absurd, on the basis of which it is saying that it was a part of the medieval ancient kingdom. So we also expanded to many medieval and ancient kingdoms in different countries. We do not show them in our maps. Even the mural of Akhand Bharat, it has been clarified time and again that it is to show the glory of the Indian culture and diversity. By no means we are claiming those to be a part of India. Okay, so the thing is that Aksai Chin, if we talk about Aksai Chin, it's larger than Bhutan, a little smaller than Switzerland. And Aksai Chin, the territory which has been illegally occupied by China, has remained a land of flashpoints between India and China. And what do they say? That this is a part of the medieval Chinese dynasty. That is why. So you see, Aksai Chin is over here. The claim line of China has fluctuated time and again. I am going to show this to you with the help of certain lines. See, the current integrity of India is according to a British legacy, the Macartney-Macdonald line, which was proposed by the British in the 1890s. This is India's part. Okay. Then comes China. It will be very interesting to understand that when India became independent, and it was two countries were created, Pakistan and India. China never said that Ladakh and Jammu Kashmir back then or Arunachal Pradesh were a part of China. They had no issues with respect to that. That entire narrative changed after Tibet was turned into a communist region. And then, as we see, China's claim line of 1956 goes like this. They are telling us that this is our claim line. This region belongs to China. Then, in the 1960s, they completely changed their stance and they said, no, the claim line is over here. Which is absurd because our actual integrity, because of the instrument of accession and the British legacy and the medieval legacy as well, this entire region belongs to India. It's a flat land. It's a desert. It doesn't receive much rainfall or snowfall, doesn't receive much precipitation. Only source of waters can be certain brackish lakes and the Caracas River. So Aksai Chin is strategically very important. It's a gateway of India to Central Asia. And that is why it is important. It's a sovereign area. That is why it is important for India to safeguard it. Okay. And we can also say, if we have to go back to medieval times, then we can say that Tibet-Ladakh relations continued even after the Mughal Empire extended to Ladakh in 1660s. We had relations with Tibet. And some 20 years later in 1680s, the rulers of Ladakh and Tibet signed a treaty. And that debunks China's claim of Ladakh being an integral part of Tibet. How can one country have an agreement with its own self? It cannot do that, right? Then another thing is that British rule over India, another treaty was signed in 1842 between the rulers of Tibet and Kashmir, confirming that Ladakh was a part of Kashmir and controlled by its government. Dogra chief Maharaja Gulab Singh was the king who had conquered Ladakh in 1834. Then Ramchandra Guha, he has made a claim in India after Gandhi that Kunlun Mountains were supposed to be the claim of from China as well, that this is our boundary that divides India and China. This has been our own narrative as well. And Ramchandra Guha has also said in India after Gandhi that China never claimed Ladakh to be a part of its own kingdom until the 1920s. In 1930s, there was a map that was published that showed that Kunlun Mountain are the you can say a watershed between India and China, and India also said that. How did it change in 1950s? It all started changing. So we have to understand that because of the Indian Independence Act, which created two countries, India and Pakistan, we have the entire right over our own sovereign territory, and Chinese claims, like the rest of its territorial claims, do not hold any sort of water. Even in the fate of Tibet, when big insects eat small insects, which has been written by a French author, Claude Arpi, he has cited that the change in China's stance over Aksai Chin has all changed in the 1952. The Chinese planned aggression beyond, after they started conquering Tibet. And three roads is highway number 219 that connects Hotan in Xinjiang to Lhasa in Tibet. That shows that when in 1953 there were slogans of Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, they started all sorts of development, infrastructural development, land grabbing development by that time only. And Chinese military first made appearance in northwest Tibet in 1951. I am talking about the actual Tibet, that is east of Aksai Chin. Construction activities began only in 1953. By 1959, the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was diplomatically asserting India's sovereignty rights over Aksai Chin, and China had, for all practical purposes, occupied. That has been made time and again. This has been called out time and again. The thing is that China is never to be trusted. This is the learning since historical times that India has learned. And we still cannot trust China. Not right now, not in the future. So you can see when Xi Jinping talked about ensuring that Chinese, border disputes should be resolved diplomatically, China is not having it. This is all a part of a strategy, all a part of what we call a legal warfare to push the propaganda of China, to push the narrative of China. 5 years before the India-China war began, a Chinese newspaper, Quang Min Jipao, it reported that the Xinjiang Tibet, the highest highway in the world, has been completed. That means since the very beginning, without India's knowledge, they tried to unilaterally change the status quo, which they still do. And not only with India, they do it with all the neighbors they have. It's a very insecure country territorially. And there is a history to it because the historical circumstances have been very different. When the time comes, I will explain that to you. Okay. And here, earlier in Arunachal Pradesh, they had this region of interest called Tawang. But now they say that entire Arunachal Pradesh is a part of southern Tibet. The thing is that if they are able to seize this region, it will give a strategic way ahead to China. China can ensure that it reaches many economic doors from this region to Bangladesh, Myanmar, and that is why it wants to do so. Other than this, Tawang is another very, from the perspective of warfare is also very important, because if someday a war occurs between India and China, this region can be captured much easily. If India could do anything with respect to Tibet, this situation wouldn't have been so. Now, as I told you that it is a Chinese strategy of three warfare. Three major things are used. Public opinion warfare, to ensure that the public opinion rests with the government. Public will feel more empowered when they will be shown how China is growing militarily, how China is being perceived diplomatically, and this is one of its strategies. It is showing that we have not bogged down to India. We are just trying to ensure that someday we may be able to capture Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh. Psychological warfare. In order to ensure that the enemy doesn't want to even fight, win without fighting. Push certain agendas, certain propaganda in such a manner that the morals and morale, we can call, not morals, morale, and the urge to fight, it goes away. So they are continuing to do this with the help of this particular map and legal warfare. This is all a part of the political work guidelines of the People's Liberation Army in 2003 to suppress the enemy's desire to fight, or in Sun Tzu's word, winning without fighting. This includes information operation warfare. That means fake news, false news, turning the public opinion in our courts. Other than this, involving rumors, false narratives, and harassment. This is all a part of Chinese warfare. 3 warfare strategy. Okay. Now, what are going to be the impacts? First of all, China cannot be trusted. Recently, we had an optic that India and China were going somewhere. They had a high-level talk, highest level talk, in fact, president and prime minister. But now we can say that no, we cannot ever trust China. It is trying to double down on India as well. China is trying to double down on India. Russia is not coming. Why should I? Maybe we can formulate our own group. Russia has its own reasons not to come. Although he wouldn't, Vladimir Putin, the president, wouldn't be arrested in India. That's a far-fetched thing. But the thing is that it is trying to show that they're cornering with Russia. They are showing solidarity with Russia. Then, no change in ground position is anticipated. These things do not change the ground position. That is not going to happen. It's not suddenly going to happen that because of this map, these regions belong to them. But still, it is showing that diplomatic talks have nothing to them. They just rely on unilaterally changing the status quo. Now, India, on the other hand, has learned not to believe China. It has had in the past, it still does, and it will in the future. Now, the thing is that both the countries, because the chances of resolving the border disputes remain remote, both the countries will have to bear the brunt of extra deployments, spending money on defense, and that is going to be, of course, economically tiring. Another thing is that this may be one of the gimmicks of China, as in the time of COVID-19, that Chinese economy is falling. In order to allocate and distract the people, domestic as well as the international people, from there to other issues, it would be in Chinese interest. So that is why it is doing. Even in the times of COVID-19, when it was bearing the brunt of not informing the WHO timely about the COVID-19 evolvement, then what happened? They started the Galwan clash. So this is all a part of Chinese strategy. Everything is very well thought out, very well timed, and intentions are very clear. Okay, so I hope you understood this topic well. I hope you can write a mains answer on this if I ever talk about cartographic offensive. Make sure that you do subscribe to StudyIQ IAS English and the Telegram channel of Pooja Dwivedi UPSC. Thank you so much.